Hi everyone, this presentation is about lead generation, how things have changed, and perhaps how you can develop your strategy to generate more revenue and more interest in your products and services. I hope you enjoy it. The world of lead generation is changing. It's unrecognisable from the past. And the trouble is, you still need to find ways of developing interest in your products, your services, increasing revenue and finding new customers. So some of you watching this video might be saying to yourselves, why should I care? Hopefully I've just given you a reason to care. But the reality is some of you will find that things are okay. Business is good, customers coming in, and you may say even that your marketplace is quite static. It isn't changing particularly. But the reality is that's not the truth, because there's lots of stuff that's happening in the greater business community, in the greater business world, that might shake your belief in that. For example, the situation in UK PLC at the moment is not particularly rosy. I saw a presentation fairly recently from the Bank of England, which made timestamp this particular presentation, that showed that UK growth, GDP growth, had only increased by 0.1% in the last quarter. Coupled with that, we've got an increase in oil prices as we speak, and we've got a decrease in other factors which are not good for the economy. So how do you deal with some of those situations? Well, it's further complicated by other stuff which is disruptive in our marketplaces. The kind of thing I'm talking about here is disruptive entrance, innovations into our business world. So on this slide here you can see people like Airbnb, which has really shaken up the travel market. You could argue that people like Booking.com, etc. have also done the same. On the other side, you've got Netflix, which has really changed the way that we view media, that we view television, through content. And now, not only are they a broadcaster, they're actually commissioning content, films, series and so on. The other one on the slide you can see there is Amazon. Well, clearly the death of retail, so to speak, has been, and even today, I don't know whether you've seen the media today, House of Fraser are closing half of their stores in the UK, again, which timestamps this particular presentation. But the reality is, Amazon is also challenging people like Netflix, and they've just bought the rights to Premiership football. So again, you've got people shaking up the market. Waze I've got on this. Now, you could say not just Waze, sat-navs in general, whether they're in the car or Google Maps. If you were a black cab driver or you wanted to be a black cab driver, would you spend 3 years now doing the knowledge, knowing that people can get around very simply just using sat-nav? And you've got Uber there, which again is challenging the black cab and the other cab, the traditional taxi market. At the bottom there, you've got virtual reality. A lot of professions are going to be, I would say, enhanced as well as shaken up through training and the use of virtual reality, augmented reality and so on. At the bottom of this slide, you can see an old mobile phone from Nokia. You might wonder what on earth that's doing in the same marketplace, if you like, as some of these other disruptive solutions. The reality is, I did some work some years ago with a mobile phone marketing company, and I went to Oxford University and did a short course with one of the head honchos from Nokia, and he asked a question, and it was this: who's the biggest phone manufacturer in the world? And the answer that most people gave was someone like Canon or Kodak. But the reality is that at the time, it was Nokia, because the use of mobile phones for taking photos. And that's got even stronger since. So that overtook and actually superseded that marketplace. And Kodak as a brand is no longer strong in cameras. And the reason why I put Nokia in here is, how many of you today have got a Nokia phone? They themselves have been superseded by Apple, Samsung and some of the other Asian mobile phone providers. So the pace of change is really fast. So you can't, unfortunately, sit on your laurels or remain on your laurels. Because the cake, certainly in the UK as we speak, is not getting any bigger. And if the cake is it's not getting any bigger, people are devouring the slices quickly and you may end up with the crumbs. So you need to be aware that your competition is going to be fighting for survival. They're going to be aggressive, they're going to be targeting your customers because they're the ones that help them get greater market share. So you cannot sit back, because if you do, you snooze, you lose. Things are changing. And the other challenge you've got is, certainly in my day, it was very simple. I'll come on to that in a short while. But there are so many marketing options. It's like being a kid in a candy shop. Which one do you choose? Which one do you go for first? Because there are so many things competing for your limited budget, let's say. It used to be so simple. It really did. You had on one hand advertising, whether it was in magazine, newspaper, cinema, TV, albeit in my day we didn't have so many channels as we have today. Or you had direct mail, before we all had postbox clutter and there was a big furore around that. Or perhaps you had door-to-door, certainly in the 50s, 60s and possibly still even 70s, you had door-to-door and of course a few other media. But your choice of marketing method was quite simple compared to today. And then along came new methods. So what do I mean by new methods? Well, you could argue that email marketing and pay-per-click are not really new methods, but I just use that to illustrate the fact that we have new ways of marketing. And of course, latterly, again, not so new, we've had LinkedIn as a key business engine for recruitment, for marketing, for communication as a general whole. Then, of course, subsequently and more recently, we've had the advent of social media. And a lot of people will say social media is the new black. You have to be on social media. I tend to agree to a great extent, but there are again so many choices and ways you can use social media, so many different platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. And there are so many facets to social media. So again, your choice is confused or muddied that makes it more difficult. My point being, one size doesn't fit all. I don't have the panacea or the cure-all for all your ills around lead generation, but hopefully this presentation can give you some thoughts about how maybe you can improve your own situation. But certainly one size doesn't fit all. Not least because your audience is changing as well. If that's not to complicate it even further. The millennials, Generation X, are broadly speaking 50% of the workforce. So that younger generation who were born, I think, somewhere between 1985 and 2000, are now your buyers. And they live in the selfie culture. It's a completely different world for them. Not least, it's a visual world. And this blew my mind the other day. I was talking to my son, and we were doing a Google search to find something about a TV program. And he said, "Dad, don't use Google, use Ecosia." And I said to him, "What on earth is Ecosia?" And he said, "It's a search engine where they plant a tree for every search." And you can see there, again at the time of doing this presentation, 29 million trees. So again, that age group, he's 23, is very much more environmentally conscious. You think about the issues around plastic waste and packaging and so on. So the world is changing and we're becoming visual. Obviously millennials have grown up with that, but even in my age group, baby boomers, Generation Y I think we're called, we are still using visual stimuli. So you've got YouTube, you've got Pinterest, you've got Instagram. Clearly Facebook is more about videos than anything else these days. But even LinkedIn is moving in that way. So again, how you communicate to your target market, how you communicate generally about your businesses and services has to be more visually driven than it used to be in the past if you want to generate opportunities, interest and revenue. Now, here's just a very, very quick snapshot, an example of some of the stuff we've been doing. At the top you can see 12 tips for how to sell more to current customers. That's an infographic. We've equally done videos, how to sell more to existing customers on the same footing as the infographic. And even our blogs now, we're very careful about how we do the imagery to support some of the articles. and we break it up with bullet points and so on because people don't have the attention span that they used to have all the time. The other thing I just wanted to raise here is that even my generation, the baby boomers, ones born, I think, from about late 40s to mid or end 60s, they're different too. They're living longer, and that includes a strain on the NHS, so how could you maximise your products and services in that marketplace if you're in that marketplace? They can retire later, so they're going to be in the workforce, they need more things, more supplies, and also they are, well, they're still wearing white socks according to that, but they're also more active. So again, you're seeing marketplaces cater for them, whether it's in the sports marketplace, the clothing marketplace, or the pensions marketplace. So baby boomers different too. In other words, everything is changing and you have to keep up to date. As I said a moment ago, one size doesn't fit all. There's no magic wand. So you have to think about what your strategy is. So just a few bullet points in terms of high helicopter view on how you should approach your strategy. Well, first, you need to plan. That's the same for any strategy. You need to plan, define and locate your target market. That's the key thing for any lead generation. Secondly, you need to refine your data, the thing that you're going to use to reach out to those target customers, with the various tools available. You can do that increasingly well nowadays through technology, whether that's artificial intelligence. You may have heard of bots that crawl over the internet to find information. And of course the various platforms. You can get quite granular with some of the platforms in terms of how you can target and segment and profile. You must understand where you sit with your competitors, compared to your competitors. What are your advantages? Where are your strengths? What are your disadvantages? What are your weaknesses? How can you compete against them for the same slice of cake? And you must hone your proposition. For example, I could say we're a telemarketing business. That I wouldn't say is particularly compelling. But if I were to say to you, we help customers grow their business, that's more compelling than saying what we do or who we are. So you've got to think about positioning it in terms of the customer's perspective rather than your features of what you offer. You need to identify calls to action. Why should they bother? What's going to change? If they've already got a supplier, why would they need to talk to you? Why would they need to engage with you? So think about the rationale for actually getting them off the fence. And you have to be brave. Embrace new technologies. At GSA, we're doing a lot of video, we're doing infographics, a lot of visual stuff, and we're playing around with some other technologies like artificial intelligence. Don't be scared. Have a go. What's the worst that could happen? And of course, most important of all, in many ways, don't let inertia be your enemy. What you need, action, is your friend. Get out there. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because your customers are not waiting for you. I mentioned a moment ago data, and data is definitely the holy grail. If you can't see your target, how will you hit it? I always give an example of the Olympics, and imagine you were the expected gold medalist for the rifle shooting. And the reason is, you've got the best gun. Now, I know nothing about guns, but imagine it's engineered to perfection. Even the bullets are hand-filed to fly through the air at an unprecedented precision and velocity. And you've got the best, least shaky hand, and you've got the best eye for a target in the competition. And come the great day, you take aim, you fire, and the crowd goes silent. They were shouting and screaming a moment ago, but they've gone quiet. Why? It's very simple. The target's over there and you were firing over there. Doesn't matter how good you are, how good your products and services are, if you are not aiming in the right direction, whether that's outbound marketing like telemarketing, direct mail or otherwise, or even catering in your blogs for a certain target market, you're not writing them or you're doing your videos for the wrong marketplace, or they're not interesting for that marketplace, you won't hit your target. So targeting and data is the holy grail. And you've got, as I said a moment ago, a much greater ability to segment than ever before. You've got things like Sales Navigator on LinkedIn where you can go quite deep in terms of the segmentation. Likewise, for the granularity on Facebook, if Facebook is an avenue where your customers go. But increasingly, you've got things like bots and artificial intelligence, which allow us to reach out on the web and find information about our customers. Obviously in a GDPR compliant manner, goes without saying. Once you've found your customers, how do you stand out? It's all very well, but if you're saying, doing and presenting the same thing as your customers, whether it's in your brochures or otherwise, you're going to look the same. So you need to differentiate, you need to find a method to standing out. And it's all about friends and benefits. Obviously we've doctored that movie, if you're familiar with that movie. Friends, meaning that either online or offline, whether it's a networking event, a face-to-face meeting, on the phone or otherwise, you need to build rapport. Especially at a higher value of sale, customers, or people buy people, but also they would never buy from someone they didn't trust. So you need to make friends with your customer base. And secondly, you need to think about benefits. Too often, as I said earlier, people think, or at least communicate in terms of what they do and who they are, and they forget the real genuine benefits. We help customers grow their business. We stave off decline. We don't do telemarketing. And there's the difference. You have to remember that customers don't care what you know until they know that you care. And therefore you need to communicate in every aspect, whether it's website or otherwise, what you're doing for them, how you help them. What problems do you solve for them? What headaches have they got? What keeps them up at night? If you can pinpoint that, you're much closer to presenting your services in such a way that it will improve the perception of your product, increase your revenue, and gain interest amongst your customer base. And again, remember, you've got to get them off the fence. If they've got a current supplier that does what you do pretty much, and they're not ready to change, why would they talk to you? But you need to be talking to them to get in front of them during the change cycle. So find out what's going to get them off the fence now. Remembering also, you've got to understand where they congregate. I always like to say, where do your customers go for knowledge, education, information, and even fun? And you might include Facebook in that, for example. Ideally, you want to be present, visible, and credible in those places. So try and work out where your marketplace congregates and try and be present. Nowadays, a lot of that's online. And by being present, what I mean now is content, not least. You've probably heard the expression content is king. What do I mean by that? Well, content is things like this that you can see on the slide. Everything from FAQs to podcasts to blogs to vlogs. This is a vlog in many respects. It's just me sitting in front of a mobile camera and therefore hopefully giving you some useful information to help you in your business. It could be professional videos. If you look at our website, we've got quite a few professionally done videos in studios. Case studies. I like listicles, top 10 tips to, 8 ways to, 5 options for. People like that because it breaks it down and it's nice and easily digestible. And on the other side of the screen there, you can see things like infographics, which we do quite a lot of, and so on and so forth. So content is what gets you credibility. And credibility with content is good not only for your website, not only on social media, on the various platforms, but also for Google and the other search engines, because they like content. Frequent, fresh, updated content will push up your rankings and that will help you. And that's the same on the social platforms. They're beginning to favour native content. That's stuff you upload directly as opposed to stuff that you may link. So it gains you visibility, gets your head above the parapet, so to speak, above your competitors, helps you stand out, and gets you more credibility. Both are important. And of course, why would you use a telemarketing lead generation operation like GSA if they were already coming to you? because clearly it's cheaper and more effective if customers are drawn to you than if you have to reach out to get them. Of course, it's not an overnight thing, which is why outbound lead generation still persists, whether that's email, direct mail, or phone, for example. But ideally, you want customers flocking to your door. The problem is, unfortunately, social is no longer free. It used to be you'd post something and it would get a naturally high organic reach. It would reach lots of people, ideally in your target market. Sadly, that's no longer the case because of the level of clutter, lots of people doing stuff. Nowadays, you have to pay for it, which is why these four, for example, have business solutions to help you buy content, buy advertising effectively, or sponsored in-mails on LinkedIn, if you think of it in that way. So you have to recognize to some extent that buying social reach is part of your strategy. So in my opinion, you need a blend of inbound and outbound. Inbound is absolutely preferred, it's my preference, and that's why we do so much content. And we do get some great business, I'll come on to that. But also, a lot of companies, including some of the biggest companies in the world, still deploy outbound marketing like telemarketing because they can't wait for customers and expect them to come to them. Because there's a very aggressive marketplace out there and everyone's doing stuff. So sometimes you have to go and reach and grab your customers directly. And that means even traditional methods like direct mail. You may be old enough to remember when we got so much stuff through our post box that we were flooded both in a business and a personal context. And there was a big argument about that, trying to reduce the amount of clutter. Now it's your email inbox. Hopefully with GDPR we'll get less of that. But now, because you don't get so much, what about a piece of creative direct mail? As long, again, as you've got the data right. There's no point sending expensive direct mail if it doesn't end up in the post box of the person you want to talk to. So why not do that and follow up with a phone call? Maybe it's old school, but it still works. Likewise, clearly networking is an important lead generation source for some people if that works for you. The reason I put websites here is just a reminder, I'll touch on it towards the end as well, that websites go out of date. Fashion changes, and it's the same with websites. And ultimately, you will see a dip in your rankings if you don't refresh your website. That's both with content and design. So, culminating in this, just a couple more slides. Budgets are not unlimited. I get that. No one's got unlimited budget. But regardless, remember back to what I said at the beginning. The cake's not growing. There aren't more cakes available, and your competitors are aggressive, so you need to be visible. So just some things you might want to think of doing. Certainly I've talked about content, whether that's case studies, testimonials, videos. You need to make a plan for that. It's important. I recommend, certainly if you're in the B2B marketplace, that you devote time to LinkedIn. That's getting your profile nice and shiny, your company page, and putting content up there, but also potentially groups, and consider some sponsored ads, LinkedIn, in-mail sponsored in-mails rather. Facebook is great for your social stuff. For example, we've just done work with a lovely charity called Jelly Babies that raises money for sudden infant death syndrome, cot death. And we actually did their website, we did a logo for them, and we've done some other stuff for them. That's the kind of stuff we would put on our Facebook page. Likewise, we took the team to Topgolf. Hopefully I'll get some money from Topgolf for advertising for that. We took the team to Topgolf. Again, it was a charity event, and we'll put some pictures and some video on our Facebook page for that. Because that's where customers get to know you as individuals, as human beings, rather than as a corporate. Okay? But you can target quite deeply on LinkedIn if you want to reach out to your audience. Instagram and Pinterest, for example, if you're an interior design business or you do office furniture, something that's creative perhaps, some fashion merchandise, some new shoes or whatever it is, absolutely perfect for that kind of market. You need to be present. In terms of telemarketing, Some of the largest companies in the world are still using that as a means to reach their target audience, especially where it's difficult to reach them in other channels or through other routes. And therefore, if you've got a good value of sale, the ROI can be terrific. Direct mail, I mentioned earlier, is having a bit of a renaissance. We used to have clutter in our post boxes. As long as now you can reach the right decision maker, it works terrifically well in terms of standout. But don't forget, unless you've got that right decision maker in terms of your data, there's no point sending an expensive piece of direct mail to the wrong person. I also touched on websites. The key thing there is that they do go out of date. You can't just leave your website forever and a day and expect it to look modern and people to be attracted to it, and also the rankings in terms of search engines. So don't forget to consider your website. Above all, what I wanted to say is don't give up. There are lots of reasons why we get distracted in lead generation terms. But the reality is, it is about grit and determination, it's about persistence, and it's about continuing to target the right audience on an ongoing basis to get the best results. So please don't give up too soon. You might be wondering, following up from this whole presentation, Jonathan's talking the talk, but is he walking the walk? Well, this slide is about some of the wins that we've had as a consequence of deploying this strategy. So on the right hand side there you can see a picture of Barcelona Football Club. One of our latest clients is the sponsor of Barcelona Football Club, Rakuten Aquafadas. We also work with people like Veolia, Honeywell Chemicals, Liquidity Services is a NASDAQ quoted company. You can also see there we did a big campaign for Hong Kong Trade Development Council, worked for University of Hertfordshire, and lots of other really good quality companies have either come to us or we've reached out to them based on this strategy. So please do your utmost to focus on your lead generation activity, because it will work. As I mentioned, copies of the slides will be available on the link below, and I hope that it helps you to generate more revenue for your business.